Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Makers Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer, and I have with me an amazing lady, a mom, Miss Diana Bejasa, and I hope I said that correct, Diana. Did I say that correctly?
You nailed it, Dr. L.
Awesome. Thank you. So we are very blessed to have amazing community members. Some of them are parents, some of them are not, but nevertheless, the messages that they have for our audience are amazing. So please stop multitasking, guys, and tune in and listen up because I think you guys want to listen to what Diana has to say. Diana, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and how you got involved doing that? And we'll start from there.
Yeah, so I am really passionate about helping overwhelmed, exhausted, hardworking professionals to avoid burnout, to boost their productivity, and to achieve sustainable success. And when they start working smarter with me, they're able to excel in their business, reclaim their health, enjoy more freedom and more personal time.
Beautiful. And how did you get motivated in this? What was your story that kind of made you realize this is something that you're passionate about?
Well, I'll tell you, Dr. L, I never thought I would be a life coach. When somebody first introduced me to the concept, I was working with a coach at the time, looking for a new start because I had gotten really burned out as a chef. And when she asked me, well, have you ever thought about being a life coach? I thought, no, that's a fake job. But being open, I realized more and more, wow, this is like actually my dream job. And before I was a life coach, I worked on Wall Street advising Fortune 500 companies in billion-dollar debt deals. Left that during the global financial crisis because, as a 9/11 survivor, I would say that the one thing I will never forget is that life is too short to not pursue what you really want to do. So I actually left banking, became a chef, worked in that industry for about 10 years, different Michelin starred restaurants, had the chance to cook for President Obama. It was a pretty remarkable point in my career where I like just achieved, I think it was two different promotions in like 9 months. Was opening 9 restaurants in 2 states on the same day and started losing my hair. And that was really like an eye opener for me, especially as a woman. I think when you have a lot of the other illnesses that I'd had up until then were things I could cover up. And I did the same thing that I think many of us do when we're burned out and we have people relying on us. When I saw that bald spot on the right side of my head here, I brushed right over it. I pretended it wasn't there and I went on to serve the people who were counting on me. Uh, but when I talked to some of my colleagues about it afterwards, and I told them what was happening, there was one in particular who I'd admired who told me, "Oh, that's nothing. Just get the shots to the head. Your hair will grow back. It's totally normal." And that word that he used, normal, really made me start to question, like, is this normal? Is this the normal that I want to accept? Is this the way that I really want to live, right? And I think that burnout is so prevalent in the restaurant industry, and when I looked at it, I was like, I have this balding. I'm breaking out in head to toe in hives. I have low back pain. I had these feet issues that were keeping me from standing all day in the kitchen. It's like, I don't think it's this normal to be this young and be so sick. And so that was what led me to it ended my culinary career faster than I wanted. So I think one of the things that many people don't realize is that you can burn out doing something that you're passionate about. A lot of people think, oh, I'm burned out because I'm not doing something I'm passionate about, or I'm not doing something I love. What about the parents who get burned out? It's totally counterintuitive. You know that those parents love their kids. That doesn't mean that they're not exhausted and overwhelmed and just feeling a little lost and purposeless in what they're doing. So I think that that journey ultimately led me to moving to Hawaii, to reclaiming my health. My hair is all back, even after some postpartum hair loss. And I feel healthier and better than I did at that age. It was oh my gosh, it was how many years ago? Like maybe 7 or 8 years ago now. And I've been coaching ever since. Really love it. But I think that one of the things that I realized that was really powerful for me was recognizing that burnout is often a cause not of the stressful job. It's not about being a parent. It's not about the stressful environment we're in. We can't control all those things all the time. The one thing that we can control is ourselves. And when we can take responsibility for our contribution to our burnout, that's where we begin to stop the cycle, not just for ourselves, but for our children.
I love the story. It is so much, there is so much insight, and there's a message of hope in there. And it's so relevant to everybody that lives in the modern world. And what I love about it is that, with like you brought up the question about the parents, and one of the things, especially when you are a new parent, other experienced parents tell you is cherish it as you can because they grow up fast, right? And they all have this message, and everybody's like they grow up too fast. And I love this message because it kind of fits right in, that if you are just doing chores and kind of taking care of them, you kind of forget that, you need to stop and enjoy the moment as well, and make sure that you enjoy where you are. But this is your interview. Let's talk about you, and let's talk about what are some of the challenges and things that you have seen. I know that some of this stuff happens to affect businesses and careers and professionals, but it can happen with parents as well and families as well, including kids that are being pushed so hard to get into colleges and all these other things. So, what are some of the challenges and questions that show up at your door?
Yeah, I love that you talked about parents and their kids and the that high achievement mindset, because that was definitely where I was before 9/11. So I was a senior in high school, went to high school 2 blocks away from the World Trade Center, and obviously it was early September. So I was doing what a lot of children are doing who are high achieving seniors at that time. I'm focused on college applications. Where am I going to go to school, right? Thinking a little bit about boys in my first week outfits as well. But it was very much about like, like I have to follow this path that everybody laid out for me, right? That this is the path towards success, and this overwhelming pressure to follow that. And on 9/11, I'll tell you the truth, I don't remember much of the day. That's my own like trauma suppression. But what I do remember is that feeling that I don't know if I'm going to make it home. I don't know if I'm going to get to hug my parents again. And when a crisis happens, it can be really life-changing and altering. But for me, it was also this realization that of what really matters, right? Like, did the college applications really matter? Did these other things really matter? No, the thing that mattered the most was my family, was getting back to them, was seeing my friends again, being safe. And I think sometimes we get lost in that when we're caught up in this path to success that other people point out for us. And that was like part of probably one of the very first times that I questioned the path that other people put out for me and told me like this is the way that you're supposed to go. And it was part of why I think later on in life I was more and more willing to pursue my own path, was because I saw like, that day the teachers and the other adults around me were just as clueless as I was. And I was like, oh wow, they don't have all the answers in the way that I thought. Another thing that I think really touches for me, I for a long time I didn't want to be a parent because my experience of parenthood, my perspective of it was like, oh, this is just like giving yourself up for somebody else. And like a recipe for burnout. And I had had enough burnout in life that I
Mhm.
wasn't really interested. Now, I'm a single mom. Motherhood was a choice. Doing it solo was not one that I made, but is one that I accept. And it's really easy to get burned out when you're doing all the chores. And my daughter just went through 18 days straight of diarrhea. And I cloth diaper. So at some time I was just tired of cleaning up that crap, and
Literally.
literally, and I was just exhausted and overwhelmed, and I could see myself starting to take steps into burnout. And I think one of the things that we need to realize is that like very early on, there are whispers that something is wrong. Before our body is screaming, losing our hair, sick from head to toe, we get whispers. We get little nudges that are like, hey, something is wrong. Hey, something is off. And the more that we're able to pay attention to those early on and address the issue early on, then it becomes easier to recover, right? Like when we have a serious illness, the recovery process is very different than when we just have like a light cough or a little tickle in our throat. So the sooner that we're able to recognize, hey, I'm leaning towards overwhelm and exhaustion, the sooner that we're able to break that cycle of saying, hey, I can do it all. Hey, I don't need any help. Hey, like I'm just going to push through this. I think that one of the things too, when we tend to be high achieving is we're taught and we learn that hard work is success. We just have to push through. We, don't give up, all these different things. And there's almost like this taboo around asking for help, or there's this taboo around saying like, hey, I'm not okay. Something is wrong, right? And we can feel weak in that moment. But that has a little bit to do with how we were raised, the beliefs that we had. But I find that the more that we're willing to not just look like the superhero, the more that we're willing to say like, hey, something is going on, I need help. Even at the young age that my daughter is, she's only 14 months, I really think about how important it is to model for her, hey, mama's going to take a self-care break. Mama's going to eat first before you get to eat. Mom is going to make sure I'm sleeping as well. It's of course her immediate needs are incredibly important to me, but when it becomes a matter of wants, her wants versus my needs, I have to put my needs first. Because I think, I think that like even those small instances, right? Her seeing me do my skincare, her seeing me make sure I'm showering, like making sure I'm sleeping and resting. I think that at a very young age, we internalize what it is that our parents do. And if we see our mothers, especially constantly sacrificing themselves, constantly doing for other people, not taking care of themselves, there's a part of us that begins to internalize, oh, this is what motherhood is, right? And that was part of why I didn't want to do it. I saw like, oh, you just give yourself up, you lose yourself in a way. And it was why I didn't want to do it. And I want for my daughter to see and know, no, my mom absolutely took wonderful care of me, but she also took care of herself and she made sure to prioritize that, right? And we hear this idea of like, you can't pour from an empty cup. But as
Mhm.
parents, right, how often is it that like, that the cup is full, right? And I think that it's important for us to realize that we're not simply taking care of our kids, we are modeling for them what is appropriate behavior. And the more that we constantly take from ourselves to give to everybody else, we're teaching them, hey, you too should sacrifice yourself for everyone else. Um, and that's never the message I want to give to my daughter in words. So why would I do it in action, right? Because so often, right, they're not like we can tell them one thing, but what they're really following is our behavior and our actions. And
Right.
so I think it's very important that we set that example even at a young age, of hey, I'm taking care of myself. I'm making me time, right? I'm making sure that my cup is full so that I can come to you and be the best version of a caregiver that I want to be.
I love it. That is the core message of role model maker. So I resonate with everything that you're saying there. Now, Diana, we talked about and we throw this word around a lot called burnout. Do you mind letting our audience know what are those early whispers, some of those signs of what those things are, those early signs of burnout?
Yeah, so uh, this is a great question. Thank you so much, Dr. L. So I want to say that a lot of times burnout can look like just stress. So that's something often that people who are leading towards burnout will say, right? And the real difference between, I would say, burnout and stress is the chronic, prolonged nature of it, right? So like our bodies are designed to handle some stress, But when we put our bodies under extreme stress for a long period of time, that is where the mechanisms begin to break down. So I like to think of this, I like to use the analogy of a car, right? So if you have a car and you're rushing to get somewhere, so you're like hitting the gas really hard that one time, like that's not going to destroy the car, right? But if you're constantly like hitting the gas, like really overworking the engine, right? And I like to think too of like I'm sure maybe in your time you've driven a manual car, right? So like you're in a specific gear, you want to go faster. If you just keep pressing down on the gas, if you're in just one gear, you're going to eventually burn the engine, right? You're not actually going to go faster. You're not actually going to get anywhere. You're just going to really damage the engine. What you need to do to go faster, to get to where you want to go, you need to disengage, right? You need to put your foot on the clutch, right? Disengage from that gear so that you can step into the next gear. And I think that a lot of times when we are burned out, it seems like we can't disengage. I can't take a break. I'm too busy. I'm too overwhelmed. And so instead of taking really quality breaks, right, we take breaks like scrolling on social media or just engaging in self-destructive habits that feel like a stress relief, but really just add to the problem. And so what I think is really important when we're looking at some of those early signs, right? Like before it becomes extreme, we see again, like you said, those whispers. So it's us before it becomes a huge problem. It's us maybe noticing we're having trouble sleeping at night. We're having trouble keeping up with our ordinary like self-care routine. Our attitude may change a little bit. Maybe we're a little bit more short or we're a little bit more irritable, right? Whenever we notice those small changes, instead of just dismissing it and saying, oh, that's just stress, when we can say, hey, like, I noticed that maybe I've been like that a little bit longer, right? So in my daughter's 18 days of diarrhea, which is really a joy. What I noticed maybe around like day 10 or 11, like I had been fairly good natured about washing all the diapers, all that thing. I noticed I was starting to get like a little more annoyed by it. I noticed that where normally I put her to sleep pretty early so that I can get a little bit of work done at night, and then I go to sleep. I wake up a little bit before her. I have a little bit of time to work. Instead, I was noticing I was going to sleep right with her at the same time, waking up in the middle of the night, not having brushed my teeth. So I get up to brush my teeth because earlier I would say to myself, oh, I'm too busy. I can't brush my teeth right now, right? I'd get up to brush my teeth and it's like 2 a.m. I would stay up till 4 a.m. And instead of doing things that were productive, I would be scrolling on my phone, or I would be, I would be, on social media, something like that. And then it would become 4 a.m. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm exhausted again. I'd go back to sleep and then I'd wake up same time as her. So whenever we noticing these changes in our schedule, when we notice ourselves maybe leaning towards more self-destructive behaviors, when we see that like we're not really bringing our best self forward, and there are all these reasons why we can't take a break and disengage and step back. Usually those are some of the very, very early signs. And again, the sooner that we catch it, right, that ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So if we catch it there versus when it becomes like full-blown insomnia, when it becomes like, gum disease because you're not brushing your teeth ever, right, type of thing, that's where we can begin to catch it and allow it not to become this prolonged problem.
Beautiful. Now, I know that this is something that can manifest itself in different ways for different people. So, how can people connect with you and learn more about these prevention stuff and also how to remedy it if they are stuck in burnout and those things? So, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can visit my website, which is savorlifewithdiana.com. So SAVOR life. And the reason it's Savor Life is because I believe that, the bitter, the sour, the salty parts of life, as a former chef, I believe that when we know how to add balance and richness and sweetness back into that, we create something that's so much more flavorful and delicious. So I believe that life is something that is meant to be savored. We're not meant to be bitter and burned out. We're meant to, you know, maybe tame a little bit of that bitterness with the sweetness, and to add like really more richness and nuance overall. Another way that you can connect with me is Savor Life with Diana on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or TikTok.
Awesome. I love the analogies and the visualizations that you give. It just makes it so much more palatable and palpable, basically. So thank you for that. Guys, I have actually included a lot more than what Diana just said in the description of this. So please do pause and take the time to go to the description of this video and make sure you check all of those. It's actually quite rich as far as the ways that you can learn and interact and connect and gain support as well. And that, more importantly, this is really important for us to role model that we were just talking about this role model the behavior that you don't have to have all the answers, that you don't have all the answers, then it's okay to reach out for help. And there are good people in the world, so the world is not a dark and scary place, that there are people that want to make it a better place, and it's okay to reach out and connect. And if you haven't already done so, please connect with us by clicking subscribe and like on the channel so that you can get the notifications when experts like Diana come in sharing their expertise and their gifts. And thank you so much for taking time out of your really, really busy time and being here with us. Any final words of wisdom for our audience members before we go?
Yes. One of the ways I like to think about burnout is like a pizza. So one of the things that I find as a chef is that a lot of people, what they tend to do when they are first making their very own pizza is they pile a lot of ingredients on there, right? They want the pepperoni and the sausage and the peppers and the onions on there. And when you put too much on the pizza and you stick it in the oven, one of two things is going to happen. Either the toppings are going to cook through, and you leave it in a long time and the bottom is going to end up burnt and bitter, or you're going to not cook everything because it's all so thick. When you pull it out, it ends up raw and ripped apart. And I believe the same thing happens to us when we're burned out. So avoid overloading yourself so that you have that perfect balance, that structure that maintains itself. And yeah, and allow yourself, like you were saying, Dr. L, to ask for help, because that is an incredibly powerful move for you, but even more so for your children.
Now I know what's wrong with my pizzas. Thank you for this. Appreciate it. Join us next time, guys. Thank you, Diana. Cheers.
Bye, Dr. L.